And we're back with another The Cast. Look, here's what we're talking about today. Grandparents, because I feel like, I was sitting there thinking about this, everyone has the same grandparents. And I say that because you go over to your grandparents' house, and I feel like everyone had the same experience. At least, let me tell you mine. I go over there every single time. My grandma would have Fig Newtons, jars full of candy, peanut butter M&Ms, these little peanut butter candies like that. They're like little hard peanut butter, like not taffy, but it's like, it's hard to, it's not caramel either. I don't know how to, it's like hard taffy.
Grandparents' house is like on the Wonka land.
Yeah,
it really is.
So they had all this candy, they had all this deliciousness. Basically, my grandma had a back room like full of pineapple juice. I'd go over there and be drinking her pineapple juice. Like,
I think most people have happy memories of grandparents, because they're completely different than your parental experience.
And it's so funny, too. And I always remember, like, my mom would be like, why are you letting him do that? You would have never let me do something like that. You know what I mean? It's like something happens, and maybe you could attest to this, Kevin. When you're a grandparent, you, like, transform. You're no longer as strict. Like, what happened to the strict rules when I was your kid? You know what I mean?
It's very true. My kids, when they were little, especially the girls, they would be like, oh, I want to go live with Nan and Pop, because that was my wife's parents. They were Nan and Pop. And my wife would say to them, you don't realize this is not the same Nan and Pop as when I was a kid, okay? They've changed completely. So you wouldn't recognize them from when I was a kid.
Right. So I was not lucky enough to have grandfathers. They had already passed on by the time I came along. But I had some awesome grandmothers, for sure. My dad's mom was like, I remember her as being like all of 5'0", like really tiny, this little wisp of a woman. And she lived in Mocaine. So every summer, my brothers and I would spend a week or sometimes 2 down with grandma.
Yeah.
And like from the time I was, knee high to the time I was in high school, there was one spare bedroom. My brothers would share that. And I got to stay with grandma. And it was always the best. Because, she'd tell me stories as we were falling asleep. And it was, just happy, happy memories. That's for sure.
Honestly, my grandsons, they're 8, 5, and 3 years old. To me, it's the greatest feeling in the world. I always tell people, if I had known how great grandkids are, I would have had them before kids. Okay, it's like, because you do become a different person. I will allow them to do things I never allowed my kids to do. And my wife especially, she's even more so than I am. Like, I tend to try to be a little strict with them, but she's like, oh no, they're coming over. What, you want that chocolate? Go get that chocolate. Go in the kitchen. I have a chocolate something for you.
Well, the thing is, you get to send them home, right? You don't have to deal with the sugar rush that is going to inevitably happen. See, that's as a parent, you're like, stop giving them candy because I have to deal with it.
It's so true. My grandparents, my mom's side of the family, their grandmom and grandpop, were from the old country, from Armenia. Now, my dad's parents were both born in this country, but my grandmom and grandpop from my mom's side, they spoke Armenian. They were very old country, but they loved their grandkids, especially my grandfather. Just loved his grandkids. Like, he used to do like baby talk to us, but like kind of Armenian too at the same time, And to this day, I miss them. They passed on in 1978. Yes, the year Aaron was born.
As
a matter of fact. And they were always the ones, again, my grandfather especially, he loved cereal. He loved cornflakes. He always had a big bowl of cornflakes, and he always gave me like little advice. Like, I wanted to go to church on my own, which was right up the street from where they lived. We spent the summer of 1969 with them in New Jersey. And I used to like to walk to church. And my grandfather would say, oh, that's good. You go to church. You'll be a good Jesus boy, not a devil boy.
Jesus boy.
Every time, my grandpa, man, I feel like this is where I got my love of breakfast. Like, it was just my grandpa and my grandma at the house. And they would have like a full 4-course meal. I'm like, it's just you two. They have fried zucchini, bacon, sausage, pancakes, cereal. I'm like, what? You all eat like kings and queens. It's just two of you. And my grandpa was always like, yeah, but on Sundays, it's not just the two of us. You know, it's like your grandma your other grandma will come over.
Yeah.
Your aunts and uncles come to say hi. You all come over on Sundays.
Cool.
It's like, so like, you know, they have like a rotation. All these people come over. They cooked for the whole family, you know, but like at various times throughout the, like all day long, they'd be coming in. They're like, we got pancakes. We got sausage.
It was like an assembly line.
Yeah.
So both of my grandmothers at one point worked as lunch ladies in different high schools. So they knew how to cook and cook really good. And so my grandma Kirschmar, anytime we'd go visit her in Mocaine, yeah, it was just like pies, cookies, cakes. I mean, Jell-O. For some reason, my brothers and I were kind of obsessed with Jell-O for a while. So she'd make Jell-O for us. Anything we could possibly want. But yeah, just everything was delicious. And something I know a lot of people are going to go, ew. One thing that for whatever reason my brothers and I liked was creamed corn. But Grandma would do it different. She'd do a can of creamed corn. She'd put butter in it, salt and pepper, and then drain a can of regular corn and put it in there and mix it all together. I don't know why, but to this day, if somebody's like, oh, I want creamed corn, I'm like, I'll make it. Because
let me show you
it's so good.
I learned from the best.
Yes.
You know,
My grandma did that, but it's like, she'd have creamed corn. There'd be times where she had a giant pot of like sauerkraut, which most people hated that. But me and my grandma, we'd eat it out of the pot. We used to eating sauerkraut.
My other
so
grandmother,
good.
she was known for making donuts. She'd make homemade donuts for us when we'd come to visit. Everybody loved her rolls. She would make these giant dinner rolls. And they were buttery and flaky and just so
and
good.
everything was homemade, made from scratch.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it tasted, it elevated it to the next. You're like, this isn't store-bought.
Cheesecake. She always made cheesecake. So good.
My grandma and grandpa, again, on my mom's side, they lived in this old kind of, I guess you might call it now creepy house. I don't know. We didn't think of it as creepy at the time. But now if you look at it, you go, oh, that's kind of...
And when people you love lived there, it's not creepy.
And my grandfather had a dry cleaning business for years and years, and that was like the front of the building, and then the rest of it was the house behind it and everything. And they used to hang the dry cleaning in the, you know, those clear plastic thing. So you guys, you're going to laugh at this. I still have dreams to this day of wading through that plastic, like in the room, like that's in the dream, and I'm kind of going through it and everything.
Like
and
there's suits and stuff hanging up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's all hanging, and it was like on those rotating sort of things. So, but we would kind of like wade through it like that, you know.
And a good scene in a horror movie.
I know.
That's what I'm saying.
What's
like
in
we
here?
didn't think of it that way then, but now that I look back. But here's the thing: their house was old, and there were parts of that house, excuse me, that I never saw. There was an upstairs to it that I never saw. But never.
What was up there?
Well, I think my Uncle Charlie lived up there at one point. But anyway, there's some. My mom's.
Do you have like a creepy doll collection or something?
No. But here's the thing: there was one room there in that house. The door was always closed, and my grandfather and both of them, the grandmother, they used to say, "Don't ever go in that room. Don't go." I know.
That would have made me want to go 10 times more.
I know.
Well, knowing my brother Keith, I mean, he was the one that I'm sure would have gone in there. I should ask him.
Keith's got a crowbar. He's like trying to pry it open. Kevin, come help.
But he's like, hey, don't ever go in that room. And they said they had all kinds of like, they told us somebody hung himself in that room.
What?
Haunted, like possessed.
And I don't know that was true.
Yeah.
But if they made up something to keep us from there, but then.
That's a terrible thing to tell a kid.
But wait a minute.
Your grandpa had all his money stashed in that room, actually.
Years later, after they both passed, my family, my mom and her sisters and everything, they went through the house. There was so much money.
I was right.
Hidden in that house. Not just in that room, elsewhere too, but that room was like Al Capone's vault. Well, no, Al Capone's vault was a bust, but it was like Fort Knox in there. How much
they
money?
Didn't want you to find their little hidey hole.
My grandpa did the same thing. He had money
because you didn't trust banks way back when.
His pillowcase was full of money, and under his mattress he had like bills, like, and I'm talking like strapped with rubber bills. And I guess they're just like in case we need it.
I have dogs. There's no way I'm trying to hide anything. Those two nerds find it. They're going to tear it up is what they're going to do. So no.
Man, gardening too. My grandpa, they would garden all the time. That's how I learned how to till. I didn't even know how to till a garden. My grandpa taught me how to till a garden. Mm-hmm. They grew the sweetest onions. You could eat these things out of the garden like apples.
Nope,
like,
they need to be cooked.
Oh, no. You could eat these things raw. They were so sweet and juicy. They taste like you were eating a fruit. Like it's an onion.
I'm not a raw onion fan at all, but
I think it was
my dad is.
They were like Vidalia onions. These were like sweet.
Yeah. Oh, the old Vidalia.
Yeah. These weren't like, like you're cutting them and you're crying. These are like, it was my grandpa's trick. Anytime he'd get hungry or a little snack and he was in the garden, he'd just pluck one of those Vidalias. Just bite into it.
Man, we're talking about grandparents today, the memories we have of grandparents. I'm blessed to be a grandparent now, and I'm telling you, I'm seeing it all from a completely different perspective. And it's at some point, kids get to a point where I said this today to somebody. I said, my oldest grandson, 8. He's 8 years old now, Weston, but he's kind of getting too cool for school already.
Yeah.
And he knows, like, I'll go up to him and I'll give him a big hug. Oh, I love you, big boy. I love you. And he's like, like that. I go, hey, I don't care. I don't care how old. Even when you're a big grown-up man, I'm going to hug and kiss you all I want. Yeah. So, That's
what I tell my son all the time. I was like, no matter how big you get, you're always going to be my baby. It don't matter to me, none.
So let's talk about your grandparents' cars for just a second. So my grandma, Robinson, that's my mom's mom. She had a red Cutlass Supreme.
Nice. Sweet ride.
It was pretty
Sweet
darn
ride,
nice.
Yeah.
Now, hers, it's always immaculate, always looked very nice, always clean. All right. The same went for my grandma Kirschmar, only she had an older Chevy Nova. And it was kind of like this, I'd call it like a steel blue.
Yes.
Now, what was weird about grandma's Nova was like on the inside, you used to be able to get from banks like these little bitty trash bags about yay big.
Uh-huh.
And it had the bank logo on it stuff. And you'd put it on the crank.
Oh yeah. Or on the cigarette lighter
and that's
handle.
Where she'd put, her Kleenexes or gum wrappers from the kids or whatever. But the back seat was really special. Grandma had 2 throw pillows and a blanket back there.
You could live in there.
She acted like it was a couch or something.
She was ready for the apocalypse.
It was a little strange because, we had a back seat in our Blazer. It didn't look like that.
Yeah. Very comfortable.
Yeah, very, very cozy.
I remember my grandma used to have this like blue Buick, and that was back when like wood grain was still like very popular. So like the steering wheel was wood grain, had like wood paneling all on the insides. It was like felt, like the seats were like fuzzy.
Right.
That makes it nice. My grandpa, he had, it was either an 89 or like a 90 black Tacoma. It was like kind of a small little truck.
Yeah.
But every time he would use that to like haul stuff around. And then anytime like I'd go over to his house, a lot of times he had a gravel road that he'd drive up, and he'd let me like sit in his lap when I was a kid, and I'd drive home.
That's like the song by Alan Jackson. Drive.
And so Grandpa, he'd love it. He'd always sit me in his lap, and he called me George. He'd like, all right, George. He goes, it's all you. And he would of course do the pedals.
But because you can't read them.
Yeah. But you're sitting there, 6-year-old kid. You're like. And driving down the gravel. It was so awesome.
My grandfather. By the way, speaking of Nova, the old joke about Nova. In Spanish, it means no go. Que va, no go, Nova, no go.
Don't you mock my grandmother's vehicle, Kevin Hilly.
You got to come back and. So no, my grandfather had an old white Ford Fairlane wagon.
Nice.
And he used to play cards at the Knights of Columbus on Sundays. He would go over there, and a couple of times he took me with him, but he'd say, "Okay, I'm gonna park here," and I didn't have my license yet. In Jersey, you had to be 17 to get your license. I was like maybe 14 or 15, something like that. He said, "Okay, you can stay here, just stay in the parking lot, and you can drive around while I'm playing cards."
Oh my gosh!
I know.
It's put a lot of faith in you.
So I'm driving around, around the parking lot and everything. This is and he was in there for a couple hours. I wasn't driving for a couple hours, but I was, like kind of...
Yeah.
Just having myself a great old time in the park. Grandpa...
Gas was like 14 cents a gallon, so you could drive forever.
That's a good thing, because those things were gas hogs anyway. They probably got like 1 mile a gallon. A white Ford Fairlane wagon. I remember that thing like anything.
You're like the vehicle's like one of those old tractors where you got to stick a shotgun shell in to start the engine. You're like, hey!
Well, see, and because he had the dry cleaning store. They used to deliver and pick up laundry and everything. So all that stuff went into the back of the station wagon, too. Right. He didn't have a truck. My uncle, his son, also had a dry cleaning business, but he had a big brown truck. But Grandpa had just the white station wagon, so everything just went in the back of the station wagon.
Yeah.
So.
Well, did your grandparents ever have different names for certain things? Like my grandma would call the couch the divan.
The
so like
divan.
One of my very earliest memories is my mom and dad had dropped us off. We're going to stay there for a week. And as they were leaving, she goes, "Oh, you kids have a seat on the divan, and I'm going to talk to your parents real quick." So she's walking them out, and we're kind of looking at each other like, what the hell's a divan? So she comes back, and we're all just standing there because we didn't know. At home, it was the couch.
You're all sitting on a van. You're like, we thought you said the van.
Yeah,
we're all like sitting on top of the
van. My other grandparents on my dad's side, Nana and Pop-Pop, we called them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. By the way, it's funny. I'm Grandpop, and I've insisted on that to my grandkids that I be Grandpop. And the youngest one, Wyatt, he insists on Pop-Pop. For the longest time, I'm like, "Oh, no, Grandpop." He goes, "Pop-Pop." I've finally given up the battle with that. Okay, so I'm only Pop-Pop to him, but everybody else,
I see. I called all my.
He waited me out.
I call all my grandparents basically like Grandpa and then their name. So like Grandpa Frank or Grandpa. So I actually would. That's how I didn't have the only grandparent that I called different name was my Grandpa Richard, which I called Coco. And there's a long backstory about that. But yeah, that's the only grandpa that I called something different. I think my grandparent.
My wife's sister is a new grandmother, and she insisted she didn't want to be called Grandma. She's Coco.
She's Coco?
Yeah. So my wife calls her Hot Coco. But no, so Nana and Pop-Pop. But here's the thing. They also had Uncle Huey living with them, who was from the old country. No, I'm sorry. No, he was born here. That's right. But his parents. But anyway, but he had that. Oh, he still had like an old Irish accent, like that. And he lived with them. And I remember whenever he'd take his medication, he always had medication. He always took it with like ginger ale or Sprite. That was like his thing. He gave up drinking years before. He was an old Irish brawler from years before in the city in Philadelphia. He gave up drinking completely. By Nana and Pop-Pop, they always had like tall glasses of beer. Okay. Now, you guys will not have a hard time believing this. I was a clumsy kid.
No.
I was always like, knocking things over or whatever like that. So I know a couple of times I knocked over somebody's beer, and I remember my Nana saying, "Oh my God, don't spill the holy water." So
as kids, we became fascinated by the fact that we knew our grandmothers both had dentures.
Oh, yes.
So Grandma Robinson, we never caught her without hers.
Mm-mm.
Ever. You never saw it. Okay. Grandma Robinson, she was not uptight, but she was just very proper,
Yeah.
Things were done a certain way, and I was pretty sure I was not her favorite because I asked a lot of questions and did a lot of things.
You were very inquisitive.
I was a weird kid, and yeah. Whereas Grandma Kirschmar, she let me fly my freak flag. She didn't care. She was like, as long as you're not hurting anybody, you can tell me anything. And she always gave me advice and everything. But she would always leave her dentures in the bathroom in a pink cup.
Like to clean them and whatnot.
Right.
Yeah, like Polydent or whatever.
So one night, my brother and I were like, wonder what they look like. So we take the lid off and we're peeking in, and it's all kind of fuzzy and stuff. So we took the end of our toothbrush, not the brushing end, the other end you hold, and we slowly picked them up. And we're looking, wow, look at that. Could we try them? Oh, look at that. And all of a sudden we heard Grandma go, "What are you kids doing in there?" We're like, nothing.
Oh, I thought you said you dropped it and it broke.
No. Dropped them back in the cup.
See,
yeah.
my
grandfather. Speaking of dentures, my grandfather, Grandpa, he had dentures too, and he used to do this. He'd go. Like he'd make them come out at us, and we were like,
that's what my grandpa Frank would do. He, with his tongue, he'd flick them out, and the teeth would fly forward, and he'd be like, "Ah!" And you're like, "Ah!"
We were always freaked out by that.
Oh my God!
It got to the point where he even not even with his teeth, he would just go like this to us, and we go, "Ah! Grandpa!"
See, my grandma, she also had dentures. It was funny. I remember my grandma, because I asked her about it one time. I was like, just back in the day, they didn't have great dental care. So like most people lost their teeth. They either had them pulled or, that's just what happened. So she got dentures when she was young. And, but she would only ever take them out at night. Like she always hated when people saw her without her teeth. So like she was very secretive about it. You wouldn't even know my grandma had false teeth unless you saw her in her 90, at night, at like 2 a.m. and all of a sudden you encounter it. You see when you don't have the teeth, like they kind of sinks in a little bit. And so then you see grandma that way. It's always funny because my grandma would always she never really looked her age.
Hair's all weird.
Yeah. But I know she would always have a perm, a very white, beautiful permed hair, all curly all the time.
So my dad, as you all know, I've told you this for years. If you tell him be here at such and such time at 8:00, he's going to come about an hour or two early. That's just the way Dale operates. So I remember we would go down there for breakfast every Saturday morning. And if we weren't available Saturday, we'd go Sunday. But we were always down there for breakfast. And there was one time we had gone, and of course it was freakishly early. Poor grandma opens the door. She's still in her nightgown. She's like, okay, I'll meet you in there. And she has to go to the bathroom, put her teeth in. That was the first thing she had to do. Didn't even care really about the nightgown. Didn't have her teeth in.
Yeah.
So that was a whole thing.
Yeah. It's weird. Yeah, I know. I always thought that too. It's like, grandma, not that you're almost, have nothing on. She goes, I need to get my teeth in. It's funny what you focus on, like what you subconsciously what you're worried about.
It's amazing when you think about the things that generation, and again, I'm speaking, I guess, about my grandparents, especially on my mom's side. They survived
a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Armenian genocide and just horrible, awful, traumatic things. And the fact that they could find any joy in life is amazing to me. And my grandfather was just like the happiest guy you ever met. I mean, I'm sure that, I guarantee it, there was pain in there like we can't even imagine. But we as grandkids never saw it. All we saw was that happy face, and he loved his grandkids. And, he was always, like I said, singing songs about us and just, grandpapa, grandbaby, da baby, and things like, I don't know, whatever.
I only ever saw my grandparents fight one time, and it was time where my grandpa, he was just adamant. He liked to chew Red Man Gold, okay? Yeah. So that was his chewing tobacco of choice, Red Man Gold. He said it tastes like raisins. That's why he loved it.
My grandfather smoked Pall Malls.
Pall Malls. Yeah. And so he would dip all the time. He'd working in the garden, or he'd go be driving his truck. He'd sit there and throw a huge thing of chaw in, right? And so, anyway, he was trying to get me to have it. One time, I wanted to. He was like, "It tastes like raisins. I promise I'll give you a little bit." Grandma found out that he was trying to give me some of that, and my grandma laid into him. Frank, what are you doing? He doesn't need none of that.
That child doesn't need that.
He needed to talk about grandma, who also smoked a pipe and smoked cigarettes for years.
Your grandma smoked a pipe?
She did. The only reason my grandma stopped smoking a pipe is because people looked at her. They thought it was too masculine. My grandma basically had to stop smoking pipe because people thought it was women didn't smoke pipes.
I've heard of women smoking cigars now, which when I first heard of that seemed like a little odd to me. But pipes? That's the first I've ever heard that.
Grandma
I know.
More, man.
So my grandpa he also smoked pipes, but my grandma smoked pipes with him. But for some weird reason, when they were out and about doing it, it was like looked down upon. I was like, women don't smoke pipes. And she was like, well, fine. So she went to cigarettes, which that was better.
That's the worst. She should have left it in pipes.
I know. But then she stopped. And again, my grandma lived to be she was 103, almost 104 before she passed away. So
that kind of makes me mad that somebody stole her joy like that.
I know.
I'm not saying smoking is the thing to do, but it's like she should have just looked at it because it was a dude who said it.
Oh, yeah.
She should have just looked at that dude and been like, well, you don't have to.
I know. I was like, my little grandma smoking a pipe. She was awesome.
My wife's grandmother, she passed away at 96 years old. She was known as Great Nan. Her mom was Nan. My wife's mom was Nan. So Great Nan, and she smoked her whole life. I mean, every time you saw her, how you doing, love? And that's how she talked. She talked like, how you doing, love? 96 years old, and she was never sick. And ever. I mean, it was, as far as I know.
I think genetics, and it's got to be a luck of the draw. It just is. It's everyone. I think everything affects people differently. It's like medication. What works for some people doesn't work exactly for the other people. Genetics have to play a huge role in that, right?
I know my grandma Kirschmar smoked, but it's I don't have a lot of memories of her actually firing up cigarettes in front of us.
Maybe she purposely didn't in front of you.
Maybe I remember her little cigarette case. She would keep this little case and she'd flip it open. There were her little pack of cigarettes and the lighter. But I don't remember her lighting up all the time. And I know that's really weird because I should have a lot of memories of that.
Maybe she specifically didn't around the kids. Maybe she tried to like not around children. You know,
Yeah.
The great Nan, she didn't really like to like dogs or pets or anything like that. But not that she didn't like them.
Mm-hmm.
She just didn't want to have them at her. So we had a really lovable shepherd. His name was Toby. Everybody loved Toby. Everybody. He was the most lovable dog you ever met. And when we were staying with him for a while, we had Toby with him. She used to be like, "Oh, how you doing, love?" She goes, "I'll love you from a distance."
That's my buddy. His grandparents, they had this dog, and I forget the dog's name, but it was like a little Chihuahua.
Yeah.
But they're always like, "Oh, this dog hates everybody. It's the worst." I'd go over to their house. This dog wanted to do nothing but cuddle with me, and I sit there. I'd be like talking to my buddy's grandpa. I'd be like, "You lied to me. This dog." He go, of course, this grandpa would be like, "You don't love anybody. What's he got that I don't got?"
Oh, my gosh. Well, we're talking about grandparents and our memories of them. And, hey, if yours are still around, man, God bless you. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
If they're gone, I'm sure you have memories of them stuff. So share with us, just shoot us. Leave us a comment right here, wherever you're watching from, whether it's watching or listening. But leave a comment, and we'd love to hear from you.
Last thing, what did your grandparents call you?
Oh, me? It was George. They called me George.
Okay.
No, it was just Kevin. They used to use my name.
Well, yeah, they'd usually Grandma would use my name, except my dad had a nickname for me, which was Zeb. She'd call me that sometimes. But also, when we would be getting on her nerves, we could tell because she calls fart blossoms.
Fart blossoms. My grandpa did have a saying. He always would say, "How are the situation, calculation, punctuation of things?" Every time I would see him, the first time, any time we'd have an interaction together, I saw my grandpa Frank, he'd be like, "How's the situation, calculation, punctuation of things?" And I'd say, "They're good." But that was his saying. He'd do that, and every time we'd leave, he'd always be fighting the car when we were leaving, be backing away, like kicking, and like be shadow boxing the car.
I'll tell you one more quick thing here, because I don't know why that reminded me of this, but again, we spent a good part of the summer at my grandparents' house in 1969, and I was sleeping on the couch in the living room. Well, my grandparents had this giant portrait, like horizontal, of, you ever seen the famous of Jesus holding the lamb?
Yeah.
And he's got the staff, and then there's other. I was afraid of that picture when I was a kid.
What?
Because to me it seemed like the eyes were following me.
Just Jesus watching out for you.
So they were forced to take it off the wall and hide it so Kevin didn't get. And I know it's so stupid now.
My grandparents, they had pictures of their parents,
right?
And it was like this old Victorian, almost like oval. You know what I'm talking about? Like this, like real. It kind of comes out the glass,
the bubble glass,
like the bubble
we've
glass.
got one of those.
Yeah.
Of my grandma's mom.
Yeah, and so they had portraits of the. But I always thought those are kind of creepy too.
Yeah.
When you look and you're like, "Oh, that's great grandma and grandpa."
Yeah,
you kind of almost like eerie of them a little bit.
Grandma and grandpa actually had a picture of his stepfather, because I guess it was the one that adopted him when he came to this country. I'm not sure of the relation, but anyway, he was like a real severe looking dude. Like we called him Dr. Spectra. Or my brother and I call him Dr. Spectra. I don't, because he's like looking at you like this.
So we came across the picture of my grandmother's grandmother when my mom was over helping my grandma do something, and my mom found it, and she fell in love with the glass, and like the frame's really ornate. It has like roses carved into it and stuff.
Oh wow!
And my mom's like, "Oh my gosh, this is beautiful." And my mom's name's Louise, and my grandma always called her Lulu. She's like, "You like that, Lulu?
Yeah.
You go ahead and you take that." She's like, "I never did
go.
like that old woman." That old woman's still hanging up at my mom and dad's place.
That's so great. We so appreciate your being a part of this edition of the cast. Actually, make sure you subscribe too.
Yes,
right?
yes.
We want that subscribe. And thanks a lot. That's another edition of the cast.